1976 uprising was not just brought about by the use of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. There were already structural problems, there were already problems in the country, various types of problems, and this was just ignited the whole thing.
People were fed up by then.
Due to a whole range of things, you know, that were happening, and particularly things that affected the black child.
Yeah.
You know, issues, the teacher-pupil ratios, which were very high, issues, the curriculums, issues, allocations. You know, allocations in relation to the different the race groups. You know, where once again the black people got the worst of it. So even the black parent was actually funding, whilst Babanale more affluent, they got a lot of support from the state. So it was a whole range of things that people were unhappy with. So that when this thing started, the Afrikaans, it was like a trigger, which like
the last straw.
Yeah, for many other things to come up. They were there, like simmering, but this thing just made everything blow up. That's what I think. I don't think it was just a single thing, Afrikaans. There was already a unhappiness that was deep-seated. You know.
I would suggest in terms of the structure that you're looking at, maybe the context of 75 is very belangrik. What happened that led up to the 1976 course? Because the first wolf I got here for as a little boy is the arrival of Baba to Naban Batra University.
Hence I say that there must have been, at the beginning, where the students from universities who were suspended, who were chased away, expelled, they came home. They came home and they
started mobilizing.
Started mobilizing. That's right.
Mobilizing.
Yeah. Started mobilizing. We also had some students, some teachers who were private teachers, you know, they were not qualified by them, and they came from university. I mean, teacher like Scopy, Teacher Scopy was expelled. We know that he was one guy who could in class talk about politics, but not a lot. But he was expelled. So those people, they were the ones who conscientized us. And as you say, people were fed up by then.
But what do you think about Matabuka and the students that are now into classrooms? You have to go back, you know, to the period of black consciousness, which goes back to 1968. You know, 1968 is when, you know, the SASO was actually formed. So from 68 to 70 to 72 to 74 to 76 up to 1980 was a cycle of the politics. But if you go to 68, you know, it is then that the uprising in the country from mobilization point of view was beginning to happen. After, you know, the vacuum that was created, you know, the law, you know, from 1950 because of the banning, you know,
banning, imprisonment,
exactly. It created. So when you go with that heavy repression, then it just makes things go quiet. And in the meantime, people were beginning to start germinating. So by 68, you know, the formation of SASO. When that happened, it happened in these Bantu stand universities. You know, Teflup, which was supposed to be Sovenga, I think that was what they would call, you know, Shangaza, Soto, etc. Right? Then when you go to Fodea, you're looking at the Xhosa, you know, and then when you go to Durban, Westville, you go into the Indian ones when you go to Western Cape. The mobilization among the students, you know, very similar to the mobilization, fees must fall, if you want to make an example, happened during that time. So by the time that happened, then the authorities,
and those things.
Yeah.
plus the independence. So when you talk about Frelimo Morale, you're now talking about the independence movement on the continent, right? Because Frelimo Morale came because of Mozambique, 1980 because of Zimbabwe, the rest
Angola,
of the, exactly.
not Angola, yeah, Angola.
So what now happens, what that is that the authorities in these universities now wake up to the fact that in fact there's a big thing happening, and then they expel.
It's a national movement.
So these people that are expelled come back to the townships, right? And into the schools as teachers, with the exception of Jerry Mudizan. You know what Jerry Mudizan was expelled and came back? You know who we joined? Big 15.
I know.
Right? The rest by Ilemo, Mudi Kolung, he joined Big 15. There was a first strike here, but Big 15. Yeah. So when you then look at what happened in Soweto, is that a lot of those students, were in fact, coming back, from expelled. In Kimberley, if you want to know coming back to Kimberley, there was a massive, grouping of SARSO-based students. In fact, number 2, Kurwaza. Number 2, P-halls. There. Most of the time. Then, of course, there was also black theology, Now you need to put that as the context that then lead to the mobilization and consultation that then create a particular form of uprising in Kimberley. So I thought I should just point that, that's the background. So
and quite important, Taba, what was this white-only student organization?
Users.
Yeah, that because them rejected.
It was Nusas.
Now in the 70s, I had a good fortune to my brother, because the politics, Stan came to join them. In the beginning, 71, I was not catching up to what is happening in the politics. Now I'll bribe for them. I remember I'll steal Kenya Biri, but they'll be talking and bribing. And when was 70?
What's
Matlomo?
Yeah, Matlomola was there.
Yeah.
Matlomola went to Shishan that time, around that time. And then, that's where they used to meet. Go, but Shishan, Lebabu, Pakamile, Chasbani, the works. Let me come to the 74 Pro-Freedom Morale. That was another occasion in mobilizer university students. By that time we were following Matwana Bulehile. I remember, just by way of example, one of our teachers, teacher Fred, Murut Aring Kaitano, Portugal, Aring the other military guy. Is he giving Mozambique? And we were open that time, we were talking about Frelimo, MPLR and Bouquet Bird. So, to come 75, when you talked about Africans, now we're just finishing school when they talked about Africans. Fortunately, it didn't affect us. In 76, we left. I went to Fort Dare. Now, when we got there, struggles, like we say, struggles were there all the time. I keep food, like at Fort Dare, but it became politicized. It became Transkei, it became Ciskai in the process, but we were striking about food. And so students were always in the thick of it too, that they were striking, because Sarso Leone, they did not remain a student, university student, they were former BCP, former community thing. They get into the community, the community centers, which are later taken over by Ciskai, for example, Buzinyo, by Zaninpil, a good place I used to visit. So students were always there. And let me just mention Ivan. Yes, Ivan was indeed involved. And interestingly, I know this thing gets lost in the process. One organization that is, it's an underdog, if you like, Unity Movement. Unity Movement was always
the cells. Unity Movement. The cells were Unity Movement. It goes to Durban and Cape Island.
Especially Cape Town.
Individual Pufulsa at that time. People united.
Who was the doctor who Cape Town? He was the Alexander.
But familiar people united for the liberation of South Africa. Pufulsa. Yadi said, let's go, you're 5. When one trying to recruit 5 just and it was spreading. So it was always present here, and some of our Indian folks, Baba Kimberley, were members of Unity Movement.
Yeah, no, they-
So they mobilized. Remember the chicken farm that was raided to Transkei, Bakradi Cell as a Unity Movement. They was always,
African
yeah. So coming back to 76, I was already at Fort Dare. Graduated Kolokadi 16 incidentally. So remote training, we were coming home. I used to have a small transistor. I listened to the news. The guys would be drinking with the compartment thing. I have a cook house. Now we just started drinking. We just started drinking. I don't know metric. So every hour I just go and listen to the news. And I went to the one compartment. I get it. I listened and I went to tell the guys, hey, it's terrible in Soweto. So we started listening to the news. We got to Kimberley for the holidays. We went back. University had prepared because, as we say, from June 16, 17, it's Mulako Kahisho, Kruger's Dop. And then it went on and on and on. And Aribuarona, they were already prepared. Ilela relanda got mass meeting. Address the country is burning. Students are being killed. We can't study Holeyan. And so basically the university was prepared, the police were prepared for it. I think we were just there for 2 days. Buildings started burning and then they...
Just in July, 76.
When they went back.
When we went back. So buildings started burning and were chased away. We had to come back after paying, what did they call it, fund protection against those years, 50 rand in
Indemnity.
Indemnity. Yeah, I was telling them the other day, people coughing up. You know, but so I was telling them my brother used to send me money. Got telegram, get EFT, telegram, and the guys will be around 50 rand or 20 rand. They bossman, hey, send those are the days.
But then there were people, like you were saying, in universities, who then started Bosaso, the black consciousness thing. It's also preached by King Mozambique or King Freli Morali, and so on. So those things were building up. So I'm just supporting the text about, it did not just happen overnight, 1976.
And it was not an isolated thing because of Afrikaans.
Yeah.
No, it was coming out of
exactly.
the mobilization.
I mean, that was pointing out those students who were expelled to Kobo, Tafluopo, Ngoye, Forte. Many of them ended up back with teacher in some of these schools.
And they could articulate the situation.
Exactly. I mean, we also had, for instance, Daldala Le Nkosi, Muslim Bonafas, who were expelled and they came to teach there. You understand? But I mean, just the likes of those. And in particular, Mukimban, when we were growing up in Relem Youth Lapi, Pakamile Mabija, Ona Vaseta Youth Lapa, different churches, Anglican, but you would go to St. Peter's, you would go to St. Boniface, you would visit all these churches, at target at the Youth Lapa, mobilizing, showing us, opening our eyes. Then there were people like Mchachin, Ivan Mchachin, Lispidi.
Yes.
Nali Lepsu, we were in the, what do they call it?
The cells.
The cells that day. And probably they had other people also, but I know most when we keep a secret as a limited number in that cell. But they had different cells, and those are the guys who were doing the political education. Doing the political education, showing us, or should we be in this state that in which we are. And they would open our eyes and show us, this land here, So what is to be done is A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
And in doing so in these different cells, they then also taught us to obviously go out and talk and teach others.
Exactly.
You understand? And the consciousness was already high by the time in 1976 in Etla.
Yeah.
Because when the spark Soweto, it was so easy for us to catch up.
The groundwork had been done.
And the groundwork had been done. So I think one needs that kind of build up to show how
Background, yeah.
76.
It wasn't an event, it was.
It was a.
Who would have formed part of the leadership in the groups? And then they would have us in cells, but one did not know about the other cell. Like I, for instance, was in Chachini's cell. So there's awareness. Bernard Dering, I remember he was, Ivan's teachings went more towards Maoism. It was,
so it was called Mao, Lenin, and Marx.
So, yeah.
MLM.
Yeah, so we had lots of literature that we had to read and so, and they would engage with us with the literature and so on. And in that way, we began to understand revolutionary theory and so on and so on. And what was then left was you had people who understood certain things, and when the occasion presented itself, then these people were actually the people that took the thing off. Yeah? Because I remember the day before we went to Tshireletso, there was some meeting, and so after school that I for instance had the Ivan. Yeah, I don't know who else. Maybe I know Ivan and Speedy were very close. Yeah. So the next day, the thing appeared to have been spontaneous. But I don't think it was as spontaneous as an ordinary person would have thought. I think it was what's named, and the thing was, as in one of us, we could not do much by ourselves. It was important that we met with the other schools. And that is why we left St. Boniface to go to Tshireletso.
I mean, at Tshireletso, we did not, as students, we did not have a structure or some sort of having meetings to say that we are going to do this and that. Maybe there were some leaders who were there, but what happened, especially with the students now, was when the students we got a message that students from St. Boniface will come and join us.
Dilo tse tsa di-cell and re bua ka internet what's the bua ka influencer di-internet di na impact mo di-youth clubbing, mo di-dance clubbing.
Which was the idea?
Because those years youngsters were not going to taverns like today. And then either you go to arena for boxing, you go to recreation center for hall or St. Boniface for a dancer, or could you for the youth club. And these cells in turn then would, wherever they find themselves, influence those spaces. So there was a lot of consciousness.
Conscientization.
Now this, you need to coincide it with the arrest of Sipho.
Yeah,
You see, Sipho was then arrested, and so we galvanized around the arrest of Sipho, and we were demanding for the release of Sipho. Eh? And so we moved
That was a march
to Tshireletso.
to Transvaal Road.
Yeah, but first to Tshireletso, and then from Tshireletso we went to Transvaal Road. Yeah? And because Sipho was a very popular figure in student politics in Galeshewe, broadly. So when the call came out, we were going to demand the release of Sipho. We didn't even have problems when we came to Batley Road. Probably there were also cells, people that were in cells go Batley Road. That is in retrospect when I think about it. Yeah? So it was not a difficult thing to get the students out of Tshireletso to get into this call, the call that you were going. But what I remember also, as we were moving, students from Pescott also joined, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember I was in Transvaal Road with one of them.
Okay. So we went.
So Mayor, I think I remember the names of Mayor.
So we also had some buy-in from the colored community. Yeah. So that is what the thing was.
I mean, people like Gordon Africa, they were involved. Someone who is speedy, and Gordon Africa is a colored. Go on. You understand?
Brian Hermanus.
Brian Hermanus very involved in the DC.
Yeah, the late Brian Hermanus. Yeah, so that is when we moved now to Transvaal Road. Yeah, to demand the release of Sipho. That was the big thing. But what happened on the road when we were going there? I was that time a prefect Kusimbonafas, yeah? And I realized that we didn't inform anybody. The principal did not know where we are, nobody knew. Yeah? So I moved off and I went to school. Give informer Brother O'Brien and Father Dwight Meyer.
Because sorry, I really had Tshireletso. I'm grounding you,
Sadi.
Sadi ground.
Sadi. Already my policy but by position the developed my policy but we felt we were going through that. And I think Tex then maybe he thought there's danger here. You need maybe somebody who can neutralize the situation. I suspect it was that time when he decided to avert potential whatever the Ayakubona principal or whoever, Brian or Brian.
So, and then he came with Brian.
Yes, and Father Dwight Meyer.
They crossed by the heck because they were just about to lock us up.
Yeah, good Transvaal Road.
Yeah, they were just about to lock us up.
When staging out.
No, they were ready. I mean, you know, this thing, I don't know what they call it, the horn strategy. That's what the cops have done.
Yeah.
So they allow you to come in.
Yeah.
That is what they had done. But then in that way, I think what could have possibly been a catastrophe was averted. Yeah. You see.
No, they allowed us to then disperse and then go back, which was probably not the plan of this.
Yeah, because they were being addressed by a white man, Brother O'Brien,
and who's not African.
They could at least listen to what you are saying, whilst neutralizing the students from Bakubamudim. These things can be done in a different way.
At which point Majola is still in detention.
He's still in detention.
And then what happened there was that they wanted student representatives to speak to them with the police. That was now when the students dispersed.
Yeah, I was one of those representatives.
I was also there.
Wonderful.
That's right. Yeah, what wonderful.
Only Mexican.
Yeah.
Only Mexican.
That's right. That's right. I was looking for the third person. The fourth person.
Handsome, wonderful.
Yeah. And then that was it. And I think the following day, if I'm not mistaken, the following day, some students did came to Galeshewe again. And then we marched, it's either the second day or the third day, and then we marched to the beer hall. To go and stone
To Glass House.
to Glass House. To go and stone the beer hall. And then these other guys were also picked up now. Bo Joey Mukonyam, Bo Herb Mashwabi,
Is he still alive?
Philip, no, they are all dead. Bobby Phillips. How was their case included the Sipho? Remember, they were
In the same class.
They were the same accused.
Association on the same.
It was just Herb, Bobby, Herb Kenneth Taboman. Oh yeah.
Only light in complexion.
That's right. Yeah. But Herb and then Joey Mukonyam, on a pizza disaster, Siabeta. He was one of the accused. Mukwanyam. That was familiar.
So how crazy? So
That's
yeah. And then I've gotten all what's Sipho. And then they appeared in court.
But let us just take one or two steps back. Two other people that I thought were arrested to Sipho, Kibokala, the Parks people.
Yeah, but they were detained. They were arrested. They were detained. But the guys who were charged, with Sipho, it's these three guys plus Sipho. And then what happened there was they appeared in court and then got bail. They got bail. Bohab. They got bail. Somebody Sipho. That's how Sipho could skip the country now. And they received suspended.
I know they were at some stage arrested with Sipho.
Yeah, I get it. You were just, or you were detained. Or who said that he was?
No, I was Peter about when
At another occasion.
no, when the colleagues from the colored community came. Yeah, I ended up, in Transvaal cells. So that was about in 1980.
Yeah, that was long after 76.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or Rebecca 76.
Yeah, 76. But they-
this is for day when it was a later or another time.
No. What we were trying to explain is how these things were, developing. I remember we started off with a bit of history, and then came back to what had happened in the Kimberley environment, what happened with different communities, what happened with different people who were mobilizing. Yeah. So that's what we were trying to say, sort of how the colored community came in.
Yeah.
Remember, most of them ended up going UWC, which was also another one. Remember UWC, but this is a bit of a sidetrack. UWC is also the time when it was run Dickie van Ross, Then Jakes Carroll took over. So when he took over, then his inaugural speech was to then declare UWC the home of the left. Stellenbosch is the home of the right. So you've got the whole movement. In fact, that whole movement will then explain what happens with UDF later. So that was just to point out about these different rivers that are flowing in terms of how people are mobilizing.
I would have thought we must look at it in this way also. We say, okay, this was 76 and this is what happened and so on.
Yes.
Now, what is the legacy of 76 today? What?
That's the thrust of what they asked you.
Yeah, you see, that is a very important question that needs to be answered. When you look at the students today, and you look at what the the situation was with students in 76, what can you say? Now, is there, you don't,
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I
can
can say. This is what I can say. And I think it might be one thing that we haven't looked at.
Were you going to end up trying to answer the question?
Oh yeah, maybe.
No,
Or you're just posing it.
No, but I thought you could begin to help us to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let him give
then
context.
you can
Let him give context in the inquiry.
You see, I will say maybe, let me just take another example, say, in 76, our parents had to pay from primary school to us for schooling. And now we have free education. Could you say this is one of the victories or wins that came out from 76? In 76, we come to maybe it's part of the redress process of the imbalances of the past. Yeah? So that is what is presently happening as we speak. You see. The other thing is that with universities we are still struggling, as you can see, NSFAS and so on. We haven't reached that point yet where we can say there's also like free education at university level. Huh? But in 76 it was virtually non-existent. Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
You see. But now the problem that now I'm experiencing is even some of these what can I call gains that we have achieved are eroded by other factors like the levels of corruption in the country and so on. So people miss these things, you understand? Because the focus is now on police and so on and so on. So people get disillusioned. Yeah?
The minister
you see, so when you go to people and you talk to them about it, even if you look at housing, look at the situation in 76 and now. Clearly there's been much more houses that have been built. Look at electricity. So, okay, it's more expensive, but areas that never had electricity are having it.
Or even roads.
In a lady port, look at even water. You know, when you go to some of the informal settlement, we tell a pompo, and so on. You understand? Now, all these things are overshadowed by this corrupt and you understand? So people don't see them even.
They see more the negative than the positive.
You see more like the negatives of what is there.
Maybe the one thing
even what your feeding scheme at schools.
Maybe the one thing maybe the one thing that is missing in this entire equation is the level of social and political consciousness. Are we taking a break?
No,
let's close the classes.
The ears are open.
We're listening to you and we're being disturbed.
Another lesson I took, which is part of the legacy, I think, for me in 1976, is the self-awareness
that's a good approach.
that was inculcated by the pervasive black consciousness philosophy, which for the first time made you aware for no man kanti kimoto. Which for the first time made you aware that kanti the greatest weapon against me has been my mind.
Exactly. Which has been captured.
Yeah, which has been captured. Now, I have come to understand that not just South Africa, all over the world, when it comes to Zionism, white supremacy, if they are able to control your mind, you are done with. Now the question becomes, in the present generation is that awareness
Still ongoing.
of psychological oppression. And how far does it extend? Because even as I speak, where I stay late to me, I still have that problem because she gets propagandized by television and social media. Her utterances are consistent with what the media promotes. I still meet that same problem among my peers. So Sibua, basically your consciousness is not a reflection of yourself, but of the propaganda that you are imbibing. It's either what you read or what you see in social media or the things you've been told. So that when people reference in terms of authority, no, you really mang TV Arial, it was on social media, but so my legacy,
and it's taken as a truth.
It's taken as the absolute truth. So the legacy here is to begin to say to the present generation that what changed 1976, even the student uprising on the 16th, was a process where there was psychological emancipation. Because it comes to a point where when once you have been given the understanding of the true integrity of freedom psychologically, then nobody needs to agitate you.
But you see, that is why I think we are losing the youth, man. It's because the youth, our children, unless you do it yourself at home, have not gone through the whole process of black consciousness. Now you take them and you put them into the Model C schools without having this consciousness, this grasp, this thing. So whatever they get there, they don't have roots. They don't have something that is solid to what's named them. So they are easily swayed over. So when you speak to our children, they don't have what we know.
Yeah.
You see, we took them like that and we put them into these schools. Yeah? And unless we know the home education or you're actually going to lose them.
Because there is almost a phobia about being black and identifying yourself as black. You know the thing? Because Banabarna says Bahapilwe as says here, and we've taken to these people's to these institutions raw without this legacy, the 1976, of a consciousness that says, I am.
Can I just say something? Now, with what the Texas and about the achievements, earlier Sipai made reference to Bantu education. Bantu education came about because of the victory of the Nationalist Party in 1948. So, previously, most of our schools were missionary schools. Before that, they started by missionary colleges. And they, whether you like it, they came with their colonial education, what you call it. But it was not forced on people. I mean, missionary schools, they take you in. Many of those people were qualifying already. You could write their names. And then when the Nationalist Party won, they introduced Bantu education in 1952. And these teachers, those who resisted, left. Bo Kambule, Ona Tishako Soitu, the mathematician, Bo Mutuping, Bo Ezekiel, they all left. But no, we can't accept this. Those who remained. Well, they Banaba Bereka. That was 53. Come, we had Bantu education, 75, by modifier, by introduce of Afrikaans compulsory. After all the other things we talked about, the tricameral and Bantu stands and the works. I don't know. When you are in that environment, they're teaching you, you know the achievements. And last year, September, cultural, pigs, address those students. The principal there had his hands full. those kids, all the parents, some of the parents, those kids were going up, they want attention. They were not interested to hear what 76, because Nekla Bola Bantu education, Ritokaika Bantu, Pixaba Bolaka 1980, the guy who couldn't attend Kimo Tabak because on Ellerobon Island. They were over interested. And like you said, something is missing, you know. It's in the similar family, and unfortunately, we have to address it, Rona,
Maybe we must go back to those
the community. And just briefly, what you are saying about confrontation. Shamville was not confrontation. Shamville was leave your pass at home, surrender to a police station, tell them to arrest me, I don't have my pass. And their reaction was to shoot.
Yeah.
Now, today, I don't want to make, I'm not making a comparison. Today, people are saying undocumented people must leave. That is for 600 million. Oh, 600 million. Sorry. 600 million is being budgeted just for...
To suppress that. For the 30th.
Just for the 30th morning. Undocumented people must... This is untenable. Look at the Machutu Chuchaku Natal. I'm not digressing.
Yeah.
Machutu Chuchaku. So I was just saying this is how the government reacts.
Yeah, it's
in 60, that's how they reacted.
No,
in 76, that's how they reacted. That is why Sobuka said, 60 we lost the fear of prison. 76 we lost the fear of the gun. Because then students decided, no. This is too much now. We have lost fear of being arrested and being banned. And students left in their numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us back neatly to the legacy issue. Because, I mean, you know, you have comfort about what it is that you're going to say, and then how do you present it. But where you're coming from is the transfer of the allocations of government. You know, so you seem to be arguing over one of the legacies is that there's more allocation to black people. But you see, when you then come back to what is being said, you know, give me Eugene,
increase your voice.
Limos, you know, they are problematizing what has now transpired between then and now. You have done it yourself. You're talking about corruption. In other words, the allocation. The allocation that is happening is actually an opportunity to loot. It doesn't land. So if you say that per capita, you know, for the black schools in the main versus the white schools, right? Even if you're saying that the per capita for white schools is less, which I find it difficult to accept, but there's a different debate. There's a different debate, right? And then it's more. But the landing thereof is that you actually end up with better facilities and infrastructure in white schools, right? But if you have more, in fact, South Africa spends a huge amount of, you know, the GDP for education and health. It's one of the largest, but it has the least positive results. The least outcomes. So when you then talk about the legacy, you know, it sounds a little bit hollow, but I mean, I'm saying that you will be able to explain. Between the actual education and then what you actually transpire. So that's one issue. At a very practical, you know, lived experience level, is that we are much more poorer right now, materially.
With more.
With more, right? Instead, what does not happen, you know, I mean, that's my personal interest about the behavior of elites. What does not happen is that you in fact have migration from black communities, right, to white communities. The very English that we're talking about, there's a movement into white communities, right, you know, away from black communities. What that does is that it in fact depresses black communities even more, creates more poverty, higher level of inequalities,
including
and in
majority.
So that's the one part. The second part is the level of consciousness. So if you say that the gains, you lose the fear of the gun, right? You lose the fear of the police, which is part of your consciousness. So if you look at the entire South, you become very proud of who you are, right? And during that period, there was a massive mobilization at an individual level as to who you become and what happens. Which is why, if you want to actually understand the military struggle as well, is that there's an influx, you know, into exile, you know, with the belief that it is possible to the throne. That consciousness doesn't exist at this moment. That consciousness has been replaced by a high level of consumerism. Right? We believe that what pertains now is in fact to actually consume more and more. In fact, even in the consumption, there's very little of building assets. You know, you talk about, well, Nigeria is not a good example as well. You see, when you get your capital, you know, you have to spend more of your capital into asset growing. If you don't grow your asset, it can't create tomorrow.
No.
If it goes straight into consumption, which is what our life is about, you get.
Yeah.
In fact, that's part of the strategy. You know, you keep them busy. In fact, I mean, you know, once after
all the adverts are black.
after 94, I mean, 94 to 96, there was this thing where you're now having black executives.
Yeah.
The story was you put them into a big corner, you give them a German car, right? But you don't give them fucking responsibility, right? So as we speak, the economy is being run by white people,
Exactly.
right? Because of the strategy. So the point about it is to then say, you know, the legacy, how we look at that legacy, and how do you explain that legacy. Then it brings us back to Kimberley. What does it mean to Kimberley? The other fact about Kimberley is that you've actually had an outflux. You know, if you want to think about people that could have been leaders, people who are conscious, they've moved out. Now you're leaving Kimberley to what? Instead you're having people who are coming in, who are into careers, right?
Running the university.
Into government.
Yeah.
But towards what end?
Yeah, towards what end?
Towards what end? So maybe I'm just throwing these things. I mean, they will make more sense for the bigger story, as opposed to for the Monday story as well. But I mean, you know, it's to think about the legacy as a contradictions, as a set of contradictions. Yeah.
Now, you see, I think this part, we must just also think about it. Remember, in those years, the African people that went in to do teaching would have been some of the brightest ones. Because
It's very progressive.
Yes, because the other fields, they were banned from going into. Right. But when you look at today, the students that opt to go and do teaching, they are almost the weakest.
Employment.
It's your job.
Yeah.
They're just looking at them.
They are the weakest students. Now, what does happen then? You take your mediocre students, they go into teaching, and they qualify, and you put them back into the schools. Now, what do you expect? That's why you've got this migration of the students leaving our black schools, because the teachers that are in the black schools,
And they don't care.
yes, and they take them to the white schools.
Exactly.
Do you see? Now you sit with a problem here where you are perpetuating mediocrity in our schools.
Exactly.
You see?
And in order to stem that mediocrity, you then have to get Zimbabwean maths teachers and
what
foreigners.
See. Now, one of the first things that we have to do is to ensure that we make teaching attractive to some of the best brains also in our country, some of the best students. Because it's that way that you are going to break this thing. You understand? When you have excellent teachers teaching the students, then you have excellent students coming out. You see?
But there has to be an attraction for them, for the bright
Let me
not
tell
to
you
go to engineering.
a true story, a story that happened yesterday.
Like my band.
Yeah, it's about our teachers. There's a bright student called Masiza. I think she's in grade 5. Her report, Kitty 777, even report Yamaban 777. Now, this child, even in sport, it's a girl, she's 11 years old. In sport, YXL. Now, they had an event, go to Beer Stadium. This was early this year. And the teacher, Omo Dangasang,
teacher.
what's among Leone?
Mentor.
No, not me.
Omo monitoring.
Omo monitoring. Yeah, but there's a term. She could not.
Supervisor how?
She could not accompany go tswa sekoleng, ne? I had to transport the kid. Ngwana o ile sekoleng go tshwantsa a ya go taboga ga kere a tla da teacher gayo re mo isa di beer stadium go di beer stadium ga yo teacher ga ke rena ke be wa tlogela man o tlile lat. Now this very same child o tswile beer number 1 go tshwanetse gore ba ye Cape Town, like now they have gone to Cape Town go taboga. The very same teacher o founela gore mama ngwana e be le gore o batla go tsa report Monday or Tuesday ha tla kwa and next so o reisa dinga sia ngwana gore ne mana ke re ngwana o tshwantse gore a tsamaye. There's no report back or communication between teacher le ngwana. No teacher wa bobola and all of that. Yesterday 5 o'clock in the morning 5 o'clock in the morning, the teacher o founela mama ngwana gore a o siame ga se ba tlatse di formo ga daika a o buketswe ko kwa yang teng and all that, and the mother refused go donasa but I mean lo pakile beke mabana yes. But you know, these are the teachers that we have to do.
Yeah, but you see, that is essentially the point. When I put it, as Labs is saying now, okay, there's a higher per capita allocation, but what comes out of the school? And what are the factors that are supposed to promote excellence? One of them is teacher qualifications. What is the if the teacher came there by default because she could not be accepted somewhere else and the marks were so low, or then teaching by default, what do you expect then? But the money is there. But how well is the money used to achieve the kind of objectives that are you see?
Now, maybe for us, as we go to a break, this issue that was raised here, the same for me towards political education.
Give me speed.
Yeah, without those cells, we might not have had the particular consciousness that gave the students the power that needed for them to resist. Now it becomes our responsibility not to speak to crowds. Maybe as we document, to begin to form smaller groups of children that we speak to from time to time, willing children, and nothing. Because they will be the ones who will carry the baton into their circle of friends. Other than that, we're going to have the same kind of teacher.